August 2023. Call the meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. We have a quorum with Commissioners Nava, Commissioner Dickinson, and Commissioner Cruz. So let's see. So the commission has received the proposed agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda or any items that anybody would like to move as it sits? Okay, then this agenda will run as stated then. First, oh yeah, we need a motion to approve the agenda is where I was going next. Item number 2.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second that.
Okay. All right, so we'll move to item number 3, public input. The public's invited to present petitions, make announcements, or provide other information to the commission that is relevant to the scope and authority of the city of Blue Lake and is not on the agenda. Commission may provide up to 15 minutes for this public input session. And to ensure that each presentation is heard, the commission may uniformly impose limitations of 3 minutes to each individual presentation. So the public will be given the opportunity to address items that are on the agenda at the time that the commission takes up each specific agenda item. So we'll start with Kent Swasky.
Thank you. I might have missed it, but you had a motion and a second. I never heard a vote on the last thing. Maybe it's not required. I did wish to make comment. And it's hard to tell. The agenda is so vague in many ways. I hope I'm not on anything that's on there. But at the last meeting when we were discussing, or one of the last meetings we were discussing a leash law, and I suggested maybe training city employees to be dog catchers. And I did a little research on that. That's not feasible for one reason, because dog catchers frequently have to go through a very expensive set of the shots for rabies to enable them to go ahead and do that job. So that concept didn't pan out. But I do strongly suggest that you delve further into working with the Humboldt County Sheriff's Department over there as far as getting those kind of services. I did also wish to make mention that I have some safety concerns on a topic that's here in Blue Lake, and I think it's something that might be fixable. I saw diagrams by SHN that would fix this particular problem, and it had to do with some kind of a turnaround or roundabout at the end of Taylor Way at the gate down there. I don't know if you've been down there, but fortunately we got the car that was burned out of the way. But it's still very difficult safety wise. And I did see SHN had 3 different kind of roundabouts going around in that area and different diagrams doing it. So maybe that's something that would be brought to you, and you might want to consider making some recommendation. I feel it's a problem for first responders potentially to have that, especially if you have a lot of development down there. It'd be nice to have a turnaround since we can't go through. The last thing I wish to address today was the pop-up, I guess you call them pop-up mini roundabouts. And I don't think those are functional. I've observed many people who don't have a clue what to do. It's kind of like what happened in Arcata. When they put that one in, they called it the flying saucer for a while. You could drive across it, but even then, people didn't know whether to go across it, to go around it. I just now drove here, and I've spent some time observing people, and they don't have a clue. A lot of them just cut right across. They don't go around. Nobody has an idea. And if you're going to have a roundabout, it should be of enough size, and it should be something that could be driven across by trucks, not something that's totally in the middle of the road and doesn't have the correct design thing. So I feel that, and your city was asking for input. My input, I strongly recommend you don't do those as far as a solution, especially in the locations you have them. The one by the post office, it made no sense at all to me. It was a T crossing. It wasn't even a thoroughfare crossing. So thank you for my opportunity to speak on those 3 topics.
Thank you, Kent.
Hi. Julie Christie, lifelong Blue Lake resident. I haven't been able to attend any safety commission meetings since after Zoom was unavailable after COVID, which if that's ever a possibility to get some magical, easy peasy technology here for staff, I highly support that. I would like to see if it's possible and within your influence to navigate a truck route update. At the last recording that Justin did for us for the safety walk around, Mike Fogut had commented that he had reached out to several of our businesses, but it really was just Green Diamond, Kernan's, Pepe's, B&B. They would all like to be a little more up to date as well as the citizens on that. So if it's possible through this venue, I've tried other ones and, wherever it fits in, Mandy, that's super. One thing I noticed just coming home every night, kind of late and random hours from the farm, is our stretch right by the school from the roundabout to the first school here. It's just like super dark. I don't know how many times. I know that's kind of like county jurisdiction. I don't know if we can put in a letter of recommendation to the county or something. But I don't know how many times I've seen people biking there without proper lighting on their bikes or just wearing dark clothing and stuff. And it's like really, really hard to see them. I'm always just go super slow and very cautious. But
Could you clarify where you're talking about?
from the roundabout to the school to Greenwood,
Okay,
just that
thank
long
you.
stretch here.
Yeah.
It's just super dark. There's a couple other spots in town that are just corner like I guess it would be like off of J, but there's just you can't see at night just at all. And I get to be the night owl will only be madness at the farm that I just some lighting stuff. Maybe we can write those suggestions back into the council. But if there's a way to, or commission, if there's a way maybe that we can generate, I don't know if you guys ever script your own stuff to the county for recommendations, especially there on the boulevard. But if that's something that we could possibly do, I think that'd be great. And I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Anybody else in the public? Non-agenda items? All right. Then we'll move on to item number 4, public safety announcements. PSA update from Stephanie Dickinson.
Did we want to approve the meeting? Yeah, approve the meeting minutes first. Number 4. Are we connected again?
Am I looking at a different agenda than you?
Monday, I just went from. Yeah, we've got different agendas here.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, let's use mine.
Or I might,
There's not a packet.
I'll get the one out of the packet.
Okay. Thank you.
I wonder why mine's printed that way.
We missed
Okay.
one.
All right, sorry about that. Yes, item number 4, approved meeting minutes from May. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, and then the meeting minutes from June, we need to approve as well.
I'll make a motion to approve the June meeting minutes.
I will second.
Okay. Is there any anybody from the public that would like to comment on that item? I'm sorry, meeting minute action. All right, so item number 5, public safety announcements.
Jason, just to clarify,
Yeah.
can you just call it?
We have to vote on that item?
Yeah, I mean, you have 2, but you need to let them know how you vote too.
Oh, as far as me?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so Stephanie can record it as 3 or it's all in favor, say aye.
Oh, okay.
Post it, yeah.
That's on the minute.
I know I know it's
Sorry, it's changing a little bit for me.
Okay.
Okay, so is there any objections? So to that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. Then motion passes. All right, item number 5, public safety announcement, PSA updates. Stephanie,
Okay.
Yep.
So,
we made it.
yeah. So the thought was to go ahead and use our Facebook page, our town Facebook page, as a way to post monthly safety announcements, reminders, etc. We know not everybody is on the Facebook page, but it is the most viewed news sort of posting point that we can take a look at. We could also do the same at the post office. We can put it there too. And next month is National Safety Month, so I thought it would be maybe a good time to start next month. And what I've come up with, and I know you've seen this, feel free to send this around, is just a very basic monthly 1 or 2 postings that we can put out there to remind people. I'm not going to go through all of them, but things like how to sign up for the Humboldt Alert, neighborhood pod promotions, reminder to check your earthquake kits, or how to get rid of unwanted medications, water and river safety tips in the summer, flu shots, bear season, bringing your trash cans, picking up your fruit, etc. We can continue to add to this as we come up with things, or if anything is really abhorrent to anyone, we can take it off here for sure. But I thought I would just start kind of keep a running list of things that I have talked with people about and things I've encountered myself, and just start posting them on behalf of this commission. Um, Facebook for sure, and um, post office if you think that's a good idea.
I think those are great topics, very timely throughout the year.
Yeah.
Really good ideas.
Yeah, and always open to suggestions on these. If you think doesn't have to be just once per year, could be, every other week if we got enough good ideas. I'm trying to avoid repetition because then it'll just become noise and people will turn it.
Just because it's something that we have on our work plan is fire safety as well. Maybe some fire, something
Okay, I like that.
along the lines of wildfire safety and preparedness. So
Mhm.
um, maybe it's just like, hey, it's time to clean your gutter
Sure.
or
Good idea.
something like that. Just-
And I think is October the shakeout? Is that the shakeout month?
Could be. I don't know.
the Great American Shakeout.
Okay.
I think it's the
Okay, so we could move earthquake stuff, and we can adjust these any way we like, to match seasons or national um, initiatives or state initiatives.
Yeah, I like it.
Do we want to maybe approve a few of these so we could start working on them?
Sure. I wasn't sure if we needed to have a list that needed to be formally approved and we could keep adding to it, or if you wanted just a static list that we would just cycle through. So we should work on that first.
Yeah, I think you guys can decide that as a commission, but just in order to start getting some PSAs out there and maybe looking at some collaborations, it'd be nice to maybe to have like maybe 3 months worth
Okay.
kind of identified, and that way too as staff, if we want to do some outreach to the school or
Oh, okay.
CERT or Red Cross or anything like that, it gives us a little opportunity to kind of get ahead of that.
When does school start?
High school starts August 24th. Not sure when the grade school starts, but it'll be pretty close.
I think it's next week. Yeah,
Okay.
week or
Soon,
so.
right?
Okay. So national shakeout for October, assuming that's the right. Okay. And
I think the back to school one's really good.
back to school. Okay. For September.
August. It's
Yeah,
For
we could
August?
start doing
Okay.
that now.
Okay.
I mean, I think the vaccinations are coming up quick too. Um,
Like
I've already
flu
been
shots?
getting warnings up through my work of upcoming surges possibly. So
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you have September already as National Preparedness Month, so that seems like a good one. That gives you August, September, October, and I mean you can combine and add, have a couple of things too.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't want to get really repetitive.
Right.
So people are just like, it's another one of those postings.
Right.
Fly right by it. I thought we could add bear season on there too, because it's Mr. Bear is still here. So
It's that time again.
yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll redo these. Do you want to see the actual text that I would write? These are just the topics.
Yeah, if you want to send those over, because we can also help create, some flyers and different infographics to
Yep.
you with whatever kind of text that you have as well.
Yeah, I think it's important that all the language is the
Yeah,
same in every place.
absolutely.
Okay, so for these topics, national shakeout, back to school, um, traffic awareness, flu shots or flu season, essential preparedness months, and bear season, I'll come up with some text for each of those and send those over.
Perfect.
And then I'll just keep working on these. And if you think of any that you think are good, please tell me, and I'll just start like a running spreadsheet on this.
Okay.
And we could just kind of circulate that.
Do we need to vote on that right now? To get that going?
I mean, I think it's up to you guys it's not necessarily a formal action. I mean, it's, what about I was thinking for the back to school, kind of combining, August and September, um, like some pop-up opportunities, maybe some pop-up signage or pop-up like traffic monitors or just people, out bringing awareness. Kids are going to be crossing the street, or I don't know if there's something that the commission wants to think about, trying to organize something like that, maybe with the CERT team or um,
Like,
fire department or anything to just kind of be like school safety zone. Our kids are coming back to school. Please drive safely. I mean, a lot of times, like when we have kind of a surge of, traffic issues, like sometimes I'll, I've gone out and just like sat on at City Hall, like,
Yeah.
with a clipboard and, I'm just like, oh, too fast,
Yeah.
and people
Yeah.
start to slow down. Or
Yeah.
we've had, people just with the signs, kids are
Yeah.
kids in, school zone or whatever.
Yeah.
We could do a pop-up school crossing sign or something.
Does the city have anything we could use, like those, uh,
We could make
I don't know what to
something
call
on
those things.
boards.
Sound
Soundboards,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah. And one of the projects that we were trying to do with the arts and heritage also was get some, some sheets of plywood and get those kind of just painted with, just a primer, and then give those out to communities to maybe do like some community neighborhood, like, drive safely, like our
Yeah.
kids and pets play here type thing, or
Yeah.
drive slow. But we could help out with something like that, come up
Okay.
with some sandwich boards or
With the
whatever.
Go Slow campaign, we had talked about pop-up crossing guards.
Hmm.
Um,
It might be nice just because it's like 1 month.
Yeah.
It's not like asking people to do it all year long. But if we could get a few volunteers, to do that, just to like get that in people's minds, please drive slow. Like kids are coming back, and kids are so excited to come back to school. They run right out, they jump across the street. They haven't quite got their traffic awareness yet.
So we're just looking for someone to paint the sign.
I think there's a host of things. Like you could do some signage. I think you could do some crossing, like not necessarily like crossing guards where they're actually directing traffic,
Mm-hmm.
but just someone out there. It's like having a mom or a grandma or some on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Just watching the kids come across, who's just like letting traffic know, like, hey, we're a presence here. I find that like just being out there and letting people be aware that you're watching how they're driving brings more awareness to people about how they're driving. So, something like that. Maybe CERT. I don't know, Dennis, is that something that maybe CERT would be interested in and is helping out with something like that?
So, but if you could help us get more people into serve, definitely,
Okay.
we need more hands-on.
Right. And I wouldn't think, like I said, it wouldn't be like an everyday thing, but, just
What
maybe
about
it's,
if I post on my favorite, the Facebook, my love-hate relationship with the Facebook
Yeah.
page, and ask for volunteers on the first couple days of school? Just say, we'd like to have some volunteers out
Yeah,
there
or like
with
the,
signage
Mhm.
or something.
The city can provide signage too. We have, slow signs
Yeah.
and things that I've
Okay.
used in the past. Just, hold up a slow sign, you're going too fast. Let people know. We don't want people out in traffic. We don't want them stopping traffic or directing kids across or anything like that, because that comes with a whole
or screaming at
liability issue and training and things. And we want those people to also be safe. But just kind of like I said, it's like standing at the corner, like the fire station's a really good corner. City Hall's a good location, and then further up, just so people have points where, it's just getting their attention.
Okay.
Okay. Um, I'll try to find out when the first day of school is. Um, and I'll post that and see if anybody would volunteer for that.
Last year they started on a Thursday, which
24. Okay.
Not sure if they're going to repeat that at the schedule.
Okay. Are the teachers back? Like setting up their rooms yet? It's probably too early, huh?
I don't
seen Deanne in and out.
I've just seen DM, but I
Okay.
think it'll start next week.
Okay. All right.
All right, that
See what
sounds
I can
good. Is
find
there
out.
any public comment on item number 5? Okay.
I did want to make mention, so you folks are aware, this is being recorded, and sometimes if you're soft-spoken or you have your hand in front of your mouth, the public won't be able to hear your comments. And we do value what your comments are. So speaking loudly and clearly and concisely can be important. Uh, Great job, Stephanie, on that. One thing I did want to mention is some people really have an aversion to Facebook,
Understand.
and I don't play on it. I don't use it. I don't support it because of a lot of things that happen there. But it would be really nice if it's good enough to put on Facebook to link on your city website with the same flyers, the same thing out there, because there's some of us who just strictly use that website. So that would be greatly appreciated as far as that goes. And um, yeah, I strongly support the things, especially regarding the school situation up there. That is a situation that safety wise, sometime you may wish to address a redesign as far as a drop off thing at that particular location. But doing what you're doing now gets attention out there, and I strongly support you doing that. And it doesn't get old; it happens every year. But if you did the same thing, like you say, every 2 weeks, the exact same topic, but there's plenty of safety issues to deal with there. So thank you for getting the list.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item 6. Road safety pop-up projects, discussion and recommendation.
Yeah, so this is my item. So we did a safety walk with Dan Burden a couple of weeks ago, and got some really good feedback on uh, kind of the thought process that we're going through and looking at making improvements to our circulation routes, kind of as we're transitioning from kind of an industrial centric economic focus that we had in the past to more of a recreation focus, which is kind of the economic future of the city. Thinking about how our road systems are appropriate for those different types of user groups. We have a lot of really wide roads in Blue Lake, and wide roads allow people and facilitate people driving very fast. And a lot of our wide streets are in areas that are either highly populated or have an intersection of uses that is not appropriate for high travel speeds. I think Greenwood is a perfect example. It's the main entry into town. It's got a school, it's got a fire station, it's got City Hall, it's got trails, a park is near it, but it's also one of our widest, straightest streets in the city. And then we have to balance with that the use of the trucks, and how do we facilitate different types of economies while at the same time creating a safe environment for all user groups. So Dan was really insightful. You guys were part of the local road safety plan a while back that we worked on, that went through and evaluated the city's road infrastructure to look at improvements that weren't the multi-million-dollar improvements. Right now we have a truck route project that we've been working on for a couple of years. I think it's about the 60% design phase. We've been working on that to look at opportunities to facilitate different types of uses for those road systems. That project has also been funded for construction, so we'll be going to construction probably next year, and we'll be continuing to refine those designs, and those will be brought back. Julie, I know you've specifically been really interested in the truck route design. And I don't know that if you had participated early on in that design process, but we did, it was a little bit clunky because of COVID. So we weren't able to facilitate like the large meeting groups and things that you normally would do, and all the charrettes and things. We had to do the social distancing side of that. But we did hold a lot of stakeholder meetings. We did meet with all of the trucking companies. We actually walked route. We actually did a lot of measurements and looking at the different sizes of the trucks, and kind of what the max size of their loads would be in order to look at the types and widths that we would need to accommodate for. So the next step is SHN will be doing kind of a refined design presentation and looking at that. But that kind of goes hand in hand with all the things that we did with the local road safety plan. So that's a $1.6 million project for those improvements, but that's a very specific project and a very limited project. The LRSP, the local road safety plan, is looking at the easier fixes, like what's like the $15,000 fix, what's the $5,000 fix, what's the $25,000 fix. So instead of having to, reroute your road or change it up, what are some things that you can do? Could you do a bulb out? Could you do a planting? Could you do signage? Could you do a chicane? Could you do the roundabouts, the mini roundabouts? Like, what are some things that are lesser costs and easier to do and easier for the cities to facilitate? So, as part of the LRSP, we're starting to do some pop-ups to see what are some of those what of those recommendations actually might work. And so we have two pop-up roundabouts. Mr. Swatsky talked about those. Um, I was sorry, we let you go. Um, and we're going to be looking at a couple more to see. Some of those include, the speed tables, some additional signage. We're looking at some areas where maybe we can do some nicer planting. We could be changing some of the direction of the parking. I think I Street is a really good opportunity. That's another section of road that's really, really wide. Is very densely populated, has a small park associated with it, and we get complaints on a weekly basis about the traffic on I Street and how fast people go and how dangerous that is. So we're looking at I Street to kind of look at some different options. I think I Street's interesting because it's got a lot of different intersections that come into play, a lot of different uses that come into play, and there's also some transitional uses and overflow uses that I Street can also accommodate. So when you look at, like, say, an event in the downtown area and you need extra parking, if I Street had diagonal parking, we could facilitate some of that parking, overflow parking up in there. It's a really easy place for people to walk to come down into the square. So we'll be looking at some of these pop-ups, seeing what works, what doesn't, what might work if it was changed. Um, the small roundabouts are really easy ones. It's just a straw wattle, and we just had some plants down at the courtyard and trying to make them look a little bit nicer. We've had mixed reviews. We have some people absolutely love them. We've had people say they hate them. We have people say we like it, but it needs to be a little bit bigger. We like it, but maybe there needs to be some signage. So it's kind of a mix. We've had people contact us and say, can I get one in my neighborhood now? So we're just kind of looking to see how these things work and what makes the most sense. Like I said, we have a real limited budget, and some of these are kind of the low hanging fruit and easier for us to accommodate rather than writing for a large application that might take 5 or 6 years. So I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see any of them. One of the other projects that we talked with Dan Burden about, hot flash, is the painted crosswalks. And I know we talked about that before, and we actually have kicked this over to Arts and Heritage. Here, just give you guys a couple. There was some concerns originally with Arts and Heritage about the crosswalks because there had been some media feedback about Caltrans standards and whether Caltrans was supportive of painted crosswalks. And in talking with Dan about the use of art and installations to bring awareness to different types of traffic intersections and to get people's attention to slow down, he said that Caltrans is actually really changing their outlook and their thought process related to this. And they're actually starting to change the traffic manual to add this as a viable option. And he is highly supportive of the use of art in this way to bring awareness and to slow down traffic. So he encouraged us to continue forward with that. So I'll be bringing that back to Arts and Heritage just with that kind of feedback. But I was looking at the top of H Street where we have the church, the preschool, lots of residences, also kind of a wide road, and people kind of they accelerate going up that because they're going up the hill. And by the time they get up the hill, they're going a little bit too fast. And we've had a lot of complaints from citizens about that area too, like needing something to slow people down or let them know, like, you're coming into an area that's It's got kids. There's a lot of kids that live up there now. We have the bridge that goes across, so a lot of people use that as a cutover. I know my son uses that as his cutover route. You know, he zips right through there, hits the bridge, and then comes down. So I think that's a good area that something like this could be done. It's pretty wide open streets. And I think, you know, it can be really pretty and aesthetically pleasing and eye catching. And that's kind of what you want is you want to catch people's eye and make them think like, oh, I'm coming into something and I need to slow down and be more aware of my surroundings. So I think with that kind of that feedback from Dan, I think it'll be easier for Arts and Heritage to take that on more as a project now. So I don't know if you guys have any ideas too of different areas. I mean, there's a ton of different crossing areas in town that something like this could be really beneficial. And I think we have so many artists in town too. It'd be nice. I think for a town that has so many artists, we're really lacking in any type of art installations in the community. So I think these are good opportunities and kind of a wide open palette.
So we get one in place,
Mhm.
can we see how it goes? Can we do something like adopt a route,
Yeah,
something, and
absolutely.
put it out there? Hey, we have these ones available if any
Mhm.
artists want to. But that'd be Arts and Heritage
Yeah, I think you
project.
guys wanted to get their feedback just from the art perspective. It seems like a good, you know, collaboration between the two groups. Like I said, I know that they were just hesitant because they had, you know, found some information about, you know, the Caltrans traffic manual. But like I said, that kind of thought process is changing. So lots of communities are incorporating this. So but I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go through any of the roundabouts and let us know what you think. I think the one on I Street, I think, is a little too small. Um, I drove through it with my dad the other day, and he was like, he's 80 years old, and he's like, "Oh, what's this? We're just gonna go around." But we didn't have to go around it too much, so it kind of didn't like really slow us down. But it did definitely like catch his attention, which was great. But I felt like it was almost like too easy just to bypass it.
That is exactly my feedback for that one. I drive that street every day pretty
Yeah.
much, and it's my car is much smaller, and I don't
Uh,
even have to go around
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit bigger.
Yeah. That's some.
But I think a small one is a good since they were pop-ups, nobody knew that they were coming.
Right.
That's a good introduction, and now larger ones can be
Mhm.
placed elsewhere, and people won't be so shocked by them. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I know the one by the post office. That's a really dangerous section of road there, and we've been really struggling. G Street into Hartman. G Street is really wide. Hartman's very narrow, and we find that people use that as a cutover, or they're want to get to the post office, or they're trying to get up to the boulevard. We've had a couple of animals that have been hit right there on G Street, and that's another area where we have a lot of people, intersecting uses, high density residential. The post office attracts a lot of people. I see, you could sit out at the town square on any given morning and just watch people run the stop signs, not even slowing down. They just blow right through them. Even though we made that a four-way stop, people still continue just to go right through them. So we've talked about making Hartman a one-way street and making it only coming in because the sight distance from Hartman going out onto the boulevard has been identified as a problem area. And that's something we've been working with the county on. We have been working with the county to reduce the speed limit on the boulevard, and they've let us know that it does meet the threshold to reduce it down to 25 miles an hour because of all the driveways associated. So we're just waiting and kind of giving a nudge to the county to make that happen. But I think that will be helpful. But Hartman, you have people that park on the street. It's not wide enough for two cars, so you have kind of this bottleneck if you have two cars coming and someone's parked on the street. So it makes sense to make that just an inflow only, which would reduce the traffic load in that area. It'll push it somewhere else, but it needs to be pushed to an area where we have a traffic system that can support it. So Greenwood is, even though we're attracting traffic to a school zone, it's also the road that's most able to handle that capacity. So there's kind of a lot that's being kind of thought about and looked at for circulation patterns. I don't know. What do you have to say on
It's
that?
been my experience as far as the roundabout in front of the post office. I haven't seen it slow anybody down.
Yeah.
Actually, people have really gotten accustomed to it quick. Because as you say, it gets wider there.
Mm-hmm.
I really do support something there. It may have to be more of a pronounced effort than that. I know that's a pop-up, but and the space is limited there too because there's a fire hydrant
Right.
and the bridge, and there's a
Mhm.
house where people park right before that fire hydrant.
Right. We were thinking maybe coming into it, there could be something that kind of, I don't know whether it's just
Bulb out though.
painting or, yeah, something that funnels traffic a little bit more. That street's so wide right there.
But the one-way concept may alleviate a lot of.
Yeah, I think it would take a lot of the loading off of that street.
Mm.
And I think it would make it safer for a lot of people. I mean, the boulevard, I don't know how much time anyone spends in that area, but that's also like a very intense traffic system up there. People, you have trucks, you have passenger vehicles, you have pedestrians,
Bicycles.
bicyclists. I mean, it is, and people are just flying. And then you have all those driveways where people are trying to back out or into their driveway or park. I mean, it's really, it's a problem area that doesn't have a lot of good solutions except physically slowing traffic down. And that's kind of, I think, where we're at with this type of scenario is we physically have to slow people down because people are, if we put up a stop sign one road, they'll hop up to the next, to gain 20 seconds, and it's just this constant struggle. So, I'm not sure what all the solutions are, but we have to start trying some things and see what happens. We're not going to slow everyone down. We're not going to solve all the problems, but I think part of it is just that awareness of like, oh, they put this here. Maybe I should just, slow down a little bit, versus we could put speed tables everywhere, but, that also, I have a speed table by my house and the majority of people slow down, but there's a huge number of them that just fly right over the top of it, and that's right in front of a park. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what all the solutions are at this point.
Dennis, did public.
question if you're ready. Public input?
Are we ready for public input yet? Or?
I'm done with mine.
Okay. Yeah, if there's any questions from the public, we'll open that up. Sure.
You're recording this, right? Okay, I'm Dennis Whitcomb, 340 G Street. I agree with Kent's comment about that T intersection you're talking about above the post office, because my neighbor is so close to the street that he parks in front of his house, and then people have to, you know, actually do have to make a little curve there to get around. But it's a little bit dangerous right there for cars that park behind him or even his cars. And I've seen some people come up that street that maybe don't have full control of the car. But I have a suggestion though on the traffic calming. Last Thursday, I had a little meeting with people that were interested in the public safety. Um, and one of the comments they made was the speed limit signs that you have in town, the one on Greenwood and the one down at Hatchery on that corner. He says those actually slow people down when they see it flashing. Now, that's one opinion, but I'm thinking that might be a solution in town for some of these problem intersections. So if you haven't considered that, maybe there's somebody that's done a study on that kind of thing, and maybe that's an option. That's all I have.
Cool. Thank you, Dennis. Okay.
I was fortunate. Somebody called me 5 minutes before the walkabout with Mr. Berman was here. So I got to, I don't know if any of you have seen, I think there's a video on this part maybe on the thing. I'm not sure, but I highly recommend you watch that as far as some of the public input and questions. And then in the future, it'd be really nice if somebody was actually recording all the comments so that you folks could, if you were not able to be there, I don't know if any of you were. I know that his thoughts and things, the complete street process was very well received by the county in McKinleyville, where they possibly would be going down to getting rid of it's four lanes now down to two, putting in roundabouts, and I can see that as far as being a functional thing. The problem we have in Blue Lake is I'm going to have to disagree a little bit. The trucks are going to be here always. And I think our design should be to go ahead and, of course, do whatever we can to make that as safe. But the more times you can reroute the non-truck traffic to another thing, in other words, a safe way for the kids to have a trail that's not on the main boulevard. As soon as you can get off there, get to some other side street, or for bicyclists. In other words, don't have those competing things, which, in my opinion, will always be here. The other thing, I do think it's always good if someone wants to make a comment or has a complaint regarding things, if the city would ask them to put that in writing, even if they don't put their name on it, and then we know how many people are complaining. I also think that it'd be best if you're going to put something in a neighborhood, you don't do it just because one person says it's a good idea, but you go ahead and poll everybody in the whole neighborhood there and go around and knock on the doors or drop off pamphlets. Then make comments so you don't end up with 20 people against something, but one person brought it up and it gets put in. So those are a few suggestions as far as making the public, part of the process. Because without public being part of the process, these things are doomed to fail. Down in Mexico and other places I've seen, the speed humps basically are extremely noisy, and some people just jump across them, and other people slow down and then they patch out when they get on the other side of it. So sometimes those things have unintended consequences, and that's something you may look at for any of these things. We do need to slow people down. How do we do it? I don't know. I don't have a fix. I don't think anybody does. Uh, I did want to make mention regarding your sidewalks and painting them. If you're going to do that, you need to have a continual maintenance program. I know even with the stenciled ones that you see in Arcata where they have the bricks for the things, looks really nice for a year or two. Now, if you go through Arcata, those are all chewed up and half the painting are gone. You don't want to have something, be more attractive after a year. So either you're going to scrub it out after a year or else they have to have constant maintenance on it. Just a thought as far as allowing people to get into that process. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Julie Christie again. I'd just like to collaborate with what Dennis was mentioning earlier. I do personally feel like the flashing signals I have visually seen people slow down a little bit better with those. Unfortunately, the roundabouts, I drive a 4-door long bed, 20-foot stock trailer going back and forth my house. Like, I'll just not go that way when I go home because I can't make it. I already tried and pretended. I'm like, I'm going to kiss that curb in that truck. So my avoidance would just be going that way. We cannot avoid sending trucks down Greenwood. We can't do that. And do I think they're going anywhere? No, not if you guys want an economy and keep having industrial and building houses and stuff. So as far as, yeah, we got a wide road. Well, I think that's always in a way, there's pros and cons. I agree with a lot of Mandy's cons on it, but I think there's a lot of pros in it when it comes to emergency response personnel, any kind of disaster situations. Like once we start crunching ourselves in, we're making it a lot harder for having circulations given emergency response situations. And that's one of the main things that makes me nervous or would like a little more thought put into it. And as far as what are solutions, I don't know. Can we start writing tickets? Like, I think if people started actually being ticketed in town and getting consequences for their actions, I honestly think it's the only way people are going to act a little better in town. And whatever we can do at the school, that's great. The contracting crews ideally should not be doing setup and starting while we're doing drop off. We do drop off for 10, 15 minutes. And this worst time last year doing drop off was when the crews were trying to do all their setup right while we were trying to drop off. That was a little difficult, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comment on item number 6? Okay, we'll move on to item 7, community safety and preparedness program discussion. Um,
So I can give an update on that. We had our first preparedness Sunday for last week,
yeah, it's Sunday.
July 30.
Hmm.
We didn't have a full attendance. I was kind of worried. The summer months have been really hard to get people to attend. We've canceled a lot of even our commission meetings. People are on vacation, and so it's been a little bit difficult. But we had a really good meeting. We had 4 participants, and then the we were hoping for 6 because that allowed us to play the full preparedness game. But just with those 4, we were able to have some really good discussions about community preparedness, home preparedness in your home, give kind of an update on some of the things that are happening in the community as far as preparedness, collaborations that are taking place. Um, Lynn Glenn was in attendance, so she was able to give kind of an update on what CERT does and provide some overview of that and how CERT collaborates with the city, with the fire department. And I was able to provide some context of the city's role in emergencies and kind of what our training is and our communication strategy. Um, so that was good. Andrew did a great job. He kind of went through the whole disaster preparedness game that they have, which I think would be really fun to have, and we'll reschedule it. I think in the fall will be a better time. We'll be able to get more people to participate. But it's actually it's kind of a tabletop exercise, and that's on our list of things to do. But this is a little bit more of the layperson tabletop exercise versus kind of your response. Uh, Personnel that would be responding at kind of a different level of response. So it allows the community to kind of interact in a disaster scenario. And I think theirs was an earthquake as well. But he did talk us through it, and there was a lot of time to kind of dialogue and talk about and through scenarios, and people I think took back some good information. So we'll schedule the next one will be the end of August. We're trying to do these, we're calling them Safety Sunday events. It's a collaboration between the Fire Department, Public Safety Commission, and the community, so and Red Cross. I don't have a topic yet for August, but maybe we'll piggyback on some of the stuff that you've got, Stephanie, in the PSA, so that we kind of pull that together. So, but yeah, it was good, and we'll have more hopefully more attendance next time. And I have to admit, it was kind of right in the middle of when I had my fall, and so I wasn't able to do as much outreach. We sent out flyers. Luckily, I had prepared flyers prior to. I think I did those. Actually, I might have done them the day I fell. I had flyers done, so we were able to grab those off our system and get those out. And staff was really good about going out and posting them. But I think the next one we'll do a little bit more outreach too. So.
We had
And
free gifts.
yeah, we have to pull those together and give those away. And I don't know if you guys have any ideas on what you'd like to see as a topic, or if the community has a topic idea, we're happy to facilitate that.
Great. Any public comment for item 7 on the Safety Sundays? Any ideas? You had a list at one point, right? Some ideas.
Yeah,
I thought
we
there were some
have.
good ones on there.
Yeah, it's probably
There was
gotta
everything
been-
from like first aid, CPR.
Yeah,
training.
and I would think the first aid CPR might. I think that will be a really interesting one. I think we'll get a lot more people interested in attending that. So that will probably be like a September, maybe, because I think it's going to take a little bit longer to pull that one together.
Okay.
Just as
And it
far as
won't be
getting
a,
a
it
trainer.
won't be a
and stuff.
certification, but
No.
it'll just be the training.
But Dennis, I think you guys have a CERT member now that's trained to do like community CPR, or do you have an actual CERT?
Yeah, Preston is a certified trainer,
Okay.
but we were going to use him for our last CPR class. Those certificates only last for 2 years, so we thought that would be an easy way to keep up, but he wasn't able to do it. It was just too expensive for him.
Yeah, I know Red Cross has like a community CPR class that they can do. You don't get certified, but it still teaches you, everything you need to know. And I'd like to do one for the kids too. I think getting kids aware of CPR, I think is good in first aid. So
Yeah,
Go
what
ahead.
I wanted to comment on this was on the public awareness issue. That's the key issue that came out of the meeting I had on Thursday. And it was talking about the police contract, but I think it applies to what you're doing here with this idea. So if, I don't have an answer, but at the time it struck me like a bolt. This is the key to all these programs that we've got, like the pods, the neighborhood watches, the certs, and all the other things that we do to try to tie it, network into the whole community, is we're not getting enough participation from the citizens.
Mhm.
So maybe we should focus on that part of it. What gets people's attention uh, in in this country? Perhaps it's worldwide, but we seem to be so distracted. So, the pods, I've got one in my community now, in my neighborhood, and I'm having a meeting the 27th at the Grange if anybody wants to pop in and participate in that. But it's hard to set it up. What did it take? Maybe 5 years from the time we started that to get that one going.
Hmm.
But Lynn Glenn is a good one for that aspect of it. But somebody has to have some community out there must have done something that we can use as a template.
I think it's something that everyone is wrestling with. I hear it over and over in all communities that the volunteerism is just falling by the wayside. And I think part of it is just a product of people are just so busy. People don't have as much time. People aren't retiring at 55 anymore. People are retiring in their 70s, and it's the free time isn't as available, I think, as it used to be, because we're seeing it everywhere we go, in every group, whether it's, we have very few firefighters right now, and I mean, Jason's had a campaign to try and get more firefighters, and we've tried, everything. Like, I don't know, the outreach is tough. And then you always hear that, well, I didn't hear about it. And it's like, well, there's only so many ways. So I don't know. We wrestle with it all the time, just trying to make those connections.
Yeah, maybe it does take a door-to-door kind of a campaign to get people's attention and just keep washing through until you've covered everyone.
And I think that's something we've talked about with Neighborhood Watch. I think that's a perfect example is
Right. If you can,
but people don't interact in the same way people used to with Neighborhood Watch. People don't go to each other's houses. People don't, people interact like this. It's like, oh, I sent you a text message. Oh, I made a post. It used to be, you'd go over to someone's home and, like I remember my mom, oh, we're going to go visit so and so, and you had these conversations and people interacted and you had dinners with people. And that's also something that's really gone by the wayside in communities, and I think everyone's kind of struggling with that too. And that's why I think Nextdoor started to take the place of Neighborhood Watch, because people were more apt to look at something on their phone or something than calling someone or going and knocking on the door. So it's a struggle with just trying to figure out how to get information to people, and it's kind of like the speed control. Like, it slows down some people. Some people get the info, but there's always
yeah.
going to be the people who
Well,
don't.
I like the comment about handing out tickets. You could
That
have
would
little
be
pictures
great.
and then they get a mail
Right.
saying you owe the
There
temple.
you go.
But I don't know if that's the problem.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis.
So I concur 100%. I mean, they said amount of time spent by, I can't, the millennials, the Gen X, the Gen Zs, as you went down the list, the amount of gaming time that is spent is phenomenal. So they don't really have time to volunteer for anything else. They're too busy gaming and stuff. Um, there's a couple things that are of major concerns to me safety wise. And these are some things as far as educating the public on. Of course, one of them is a flood. And so for some of us who've been around here, we've endured that and been through that. You have a little more time. But obviously, for those of us who saw the fire up on the hill up there and what that was doing, and if that had started somewhere else and was moving the wrong way, if the wind hadn't died down and we hadn't got those things in there, we would have lost the whole hill up there. And that's the big one that concerns me, where people don't. I mean, a lot of people were taking and watching it. They were enjoying watching it, but they didn't understand how close they were to the catastrophe part. And I guess you just have to emphasize the paradise situation over there and to educate people how serious that little thing could be. If it started that way with a south wind, it could come through town in a matter of 15 or 20 minutes and take the whole town out. And so I don't know. It's like you say. I think use your technology. You know, where everybody gets on the phone. You have the call list, and I think Dan Berman on the Walkabout said one of the biggest things he saw that always pleased him was the neighborhood watch. And he said if you can get those organized where it becomes a social event, like you have a picnic or a barbecue or something like that, that's how you get the people back involved. You know, as far as that goes. Um, the other thing is if we could get Jason to walk around with a sandwich board on his back once a week with announcements. But no, seriously, that little guy up there on the corner who's always taking the pictures, I think we all know who he is. If you could get someone of his nature to help you guys advertise, just do that. Everybody sees him, everybody watches, but it's motion. You've seen the guy juggling the signs, you know, and that's marketing, and that's how you can do it. And I don't know, you might get someone like that who'd be willing to go ahead and carry your message board around and kind of take pride in doing that. I've seen people who have a bit Down syndrome or something seem to really enjoy being publicly accepted and being part of our community, and they can do a very good job. So that might be one way to get your messages out.
Thank you. That's a good idea.
Hi, Elise Scafani. Just a way to get the messages out. The Grange Breakfast is starting up again next Sunday. And if there were flyers that were being made and put all over the tables and something like that, you know, we could definitely reach quite a few people that way. We're hoping for anywhere from 100 to 200 people to come to that event. But, you know, in the future, um, it could start to be a little bit of a way to disseminate information. And also, I don't know, I think food brings people out better than anything, some of the time anyway. You know, safety awareness potluck, you know, start something up like that every few months. Try to get people, you know, all into one place and talk about options and cooperation. Might help.
That's a good idea. Block. You could rotate block parties each month, a different neighborhood.
I'm a bit up here on one again, but I'll be a little shorter. Everybody had really great ideas and suggestions. One thing I would like to know if we can cultivate any kind of fire extinguisher program here in town. If there already isn't one, if there's a way to get a little bit lower cost to access to fire extinguishers, just promoting that. I've put out 2 fires on 299 because I'm an extinguisher psychopath and they go everywhere with me. So just being aware that, you know, trying to keep, we're only going to start drying out even more here. Lightning's still a big option and all that other stuff. So fire prevention, like um, you mentioned earlier with like people cleaning out their gutters, just stuff like that, just the simple little things to help mitigate and prevent fire. I think would be great, but fire extinguishers are very expensive and it costs a lot to have them refilled and stuff. So that's where I don't know if anybody's lacking that resource here in town just because of a financial reason. I don't know if there's any way we could help supply or provide that for them. And oh shoot, it was something Mandy was on and I kind of forget right now, but it was good. All right, I'll leave it for now.
All right.
Thank you.
The fire department used to recharge police stations.
We don't. We have to take them over to Eureka Oxygen, but we do give out fire smoke detectors. We do that program, and then there's a program with Red Cross too, where they have been going neighborhood to neighborhood to do smoke detector and carbon monoxide. I think installations for people. So I know they did one part of town. I think up towards Greenwood and maybe C Street, kind of that block, and they've kind of got it broken into quadrants, and they're going to keep making their way around.
Yes.
All right. Were there any more comments for safety preparedness? Okay. Then we will move on to item 8, Red Cross update with Andrew Bozier, who is not here today with us. You never know with Red Cross if they're very short-handed and running around. So, we'll put that on for a future agenda item to have Andrew back to talk about the smoke detector giveaway program and anything else that's going on with Red Cross. Then we'll move on to item 9, tabletop exercise discussion and update.
Yeah, so this is another one that I can provide an update on. So I've been in touch with Ryan at Humboldt County OES, and we have kind of agreed that the fall is a better time when more people will be available. I know CERT wants to be involved, and there were some CERT members that were traveling this summer. So it seems like the fall is a better time. Summer is not a good time to try and get groups of people together. So we are planning on the Blue Lake centric event, and Ryan has agreed to help kind of facilitate that so that we can all participate. And I think we decided that an earthquake flood scenario would be the most appropriate for us to exercise. And as we get a little bit closer and get that more refined, we'll get a date together and a time, and it'll be, the goal is to have the responders in the community participate in that. So the fire department, the school, the city, public works. We would be exercising with Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District as well, County OES, the Rancheria, um, HCSO, and other responders at that point. So I think it'll be a good event. I think it's like I said, I think tabletops are extremely beneficial, and you can learn a ton about what you know and what you don't know. It's a great way to safely make mistakes, and so I'm excited about having that take place.
Do we want to put that on for a future agenda item? to
Yeah, I'll
touch
just
that?
keep it on your guys' agenda if that's all right, just so it stays on the radar. But like I said, I'm thinking, late fall will be a better time for that to happen.
Okay. Was there any public comment? For item 9?
Well, I'm interested in it, of course, but yeah, we did a tabletop Sunday with the various teams that
Mhm.
for cities, and we shuffled the teams together instead of just having a Blue League team. We sat with other teams, so we have to start from scratch instead of get to know each other. Sounds like this kind of thing might be the same sort of deal. And what I found was you got to be slower on the giving the scenarios out so that people have a chance to really work through the situation that they're in at that time. We went through it too fast. I think we did an 8-hour exercise before.
Oh.
So I'd make that comment to Ryan, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's, these type of scenarios can be as hectic and fast paced as an event, so, but it's better to have it as a learning opportunity. I think that's the goal for this, is to have it as more of a learning opportunity. Like I said, it's a safe place to make mistakes so we can learn from what our gaps are in information, what our gaps are in communication or understanding of resources. Versus I've been in tabletop scenarios. I've done them at the FEMA Academy in Maryland, where it is pure chaos, and people left there crying, and just you're sick to your stomach because things are coming at you. But in real life, like sometimes that's just how an event unfolds too. So I don't think that's what we want to do here. I think we want to have a more manageable learning opportunity, and then hopefully build upon it and have multiple scenarios over the year, or opportunities to exercise what we found were the gaps, or where we have our strong sections. And so
Sounds good. We'll talk about it again next meeting. Item 10, the Humboldt County Sheriff contract increase discussion.
yeah. So I wanted to bring this to the Public Safety Commission. We've been talking about this for a while. You obviously know that the sheriff has proposed a very substantial increase to our current contract. It's shockingly high. Um, I've been doing some outreach. I just had a conversation with Chief Miller, who's now, you guys all know Kevin Miller. So he's the new chief for the Rancheria. And Kevin and I have worked together and known each other for a really long time, and I really enjoy working with him. He's also got a really good background in the city of Blue Lake. He also worked out here. Then he worked in the, obviously the HCSO's office, and now he's at the Rancheria. So it's nice to have someone there that I think has, kind of a community mindset. And he was also a little bit concerned, about resources.
Well, he used to come to every one of our meetings. He'd
Yeah,
sit in there.
yeah. He's starting out. I don't want to speak for Kevin, but he's starting out like trying to build an foundation for their program as well. And he's light on resources and staffing. So both Kevin and I thought it would be a good opportunity to sit down and talk with Sheriff Hansel about some better collaboration. Because I think one of the things that I'm finding, I've been going through all the patrol stats. Um, and what I'm finding is that I feel strongly that the city of Blue Lake is subsidizing the county response as well as Rancheria's response. When I look at the patrol stats, the call volume for the city of Blue Lake is in the lower 40 percentile for the call volumes, where the counties between 45 and 60%, and the Rancherias between 10 and 17%. So when I look at these call sheets that we get weekly, the calls that are being attributed to the city of Blue Lake are not our calls. So a high percentage of these calls, over 60% of these calls pretty much, are either in the county's responsible response area already, or they're to the Rancheria. And the city should not be bearing the burden of the full expense associated with that response. And so I think we have some good statistics to look at, and I know the sheriff is pretty firm in this position, but I think being responsible to our community and to our budget and to our citizens, looking at the level of service that we're receiving, looking at these call sheets that pretty much validate the thought process of that the city is subsidizing a lot of this response. um, I think it has to be taken into consideration. I've also been talking with Trinidad. They also are have a substantial increase to their contract as well. There's some different numbers floating around. There's some different methodologies on how those numbers are coming about. There's a lot of concern about longevity and sustainability when it comes to these contracts. I don't think that, you know, this type of increase is not sustainable for the city. And we've already looked at and recognized that the service level that we're receiving, because the sheriff is short staffed, we don't get, regular patrols. We aren't getting the things that we need for what we're paying for. But the contract has been, I think, reasonable for the level of service. Sorry, my dad's calling me. That we're receiving. Going up to 315,000 puts it in a whole different bracket of service level that I think what my expectation would be. So we're continuing these conversations. I don't know where it's going to end up. We have talked about the private patrols, which I think is a great option for Blue Lake. I think that's really would be a better use of our resources, knowing that we also need 911 response from the sheriff. And so, how do we start to kind of back into this? So, I've had several conversations with our supervisors, some limited conversation with the sheriff, talking with Kevin, talking with Trinidad, and we're just trying to kind of come to some resolve on what's affordable and what makes sense. Um, so I doesn't realize that I'm not answering for a reason. I have the run sheets if you guys want to look at these, but I think the statistics are really interesting. In the past, I think the mindset was the response to the outer areas around Blue Lake made sense, because those are, that's those are issues that come into our community. And so by providing the ability to respond outside the city limits made sense at that point. But I think when we're looking at a massive increase, we start to see that we're subsidizing response that should already be taking place and is already funded under, either should be funded through the Rancheria or is already funded through HCSO. And talking to the sheriff, I was curious about what the Rancheria's contract amounts were for their service that is provided by HCSO. And Sheriff Hansel let me know that they don't have a contract, that they don't, because they have their own law enforcement, they're not paying for any type of response from the sheriff. So my concern is every time I see something on this run sheet that's attributed to the rancheria or the casino where there's, someone's detained, someone's cited, someone's transferred, those, who's bearing those costs? And it looks to me like they're being borne on the backs of the city. And so like I said, I think we have to continue this conversation and see where it leads us. So I wanted to give you guys an update and see if you had any thoughts or had any ideas or concerns. I know there's been concerns in the community about providing service. We have a contract with the sheriff. We just have to get through this process and figure out what works for the city. And really, what works for the city is something that we can afford at this point, because we will get to a tipping point where we don't have enough revenue coming into the city. And this has been something that I've been harping on since day one where I started, that if we don't have additional revenues, we are not going to be able to sustain the city, these services. And I think we're at that point. So, when you have a stagnant level of revenue coming in, when you just have motor vehicle tax and you just have property tax and things, you don't have sales tax coming in, you don't have economy, you cannot continue to maintain these levels of service. And so it starts to become a real problem. And hopefully in the near future, we're going to be in a better position as we start to have a few more businesses and we have some economies that are starting to move forward. But we won't be able to keep up with this. So I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Is it your hope then that Chief Miller can kind of take the reins and enforce his area
Yeah, I
over
mean, I think
their purview?
yeah, I think there's some opportunities. Kevin's always been great to collaborate with. I think there's opportunities. In the past, we talked about the Rancheria expanding their services and patrolling the city. We've talked about some shared costs. We've talked, I think there could be opportunities when we look at these run sheets to start looking at some percentage application of this increase and like kind of a fair assessment.
Have you brought this 60% or almost 60% to the sheriff's?
So yeah, so
attention?
this is something that is on the table. I just went through last week and did all, the calculations, pulled all the run sheets. It hadn't been something that I was really concerned about because, our contract was, it was affordable. It seemed reflective of the service that we were receiving. I mean, we had been paying over 300,000 a couple of years ago, but we had 2 dedicated deputies. And, when the sheriff finally came to us and said, listen, we can't staff that. And so what we can provide you is an equivalent deputy chair, but they can't be dedicated to the community. But we're also going to cut your cost down to what that equivalent cost would be. That made sense. And that seemed fair and equitable. So to go from that to 315,000 and for no increase of services, no dedicated deputies, no dedicated patrols, I can't equate that increase. There's no equivalency to it.
Is it an either or proposition as far as the sheriff contract or the private patrol? Is it either or is it a hybrid?
I think a hybrid makes the most sense because you have to have 911. A private patrol is more of your preventative type of service. So that's the guys going around during the times that we know we have the most problems, circulating in the areas that we know have the most problems. And it's really trying to prevent crime from happening versus a response when a crime has been committed. So the 911 is because something's already happened at that point. The prevention side, so you need both. And that was one of the things that I had tried to talk with Captain Quinnell about. Originally, we talked about what they thought of private security. Did they think it would be appropriate for Blue Lake? How do they interact with private security? Because they're already doing that in other areas. Brian had said, we do this in other areas. It works out well, so we were going down that path of like, if we have this and then we supplement it with private security, what could that look like? That's kind of what Trinidad's doing. They have that pilot program. It's pretty limited, but it seems like it's, helping to meet their needs. And it's more, they're getting to determine what that scope of service is. With the sheriff, we're really not in the driver's seat. It's kind of like, here's the contract, here's the level of service, but I can't call them up and be like, hey, I want a deputy from 9 to 3 on Sundays from we can't do that. So it's kind of, it really is a reactionary type of response. So looking at ways to, one, prevent crime in the first place, and, two, finding a balance that's affordable is really what we're looking at. And I'm hoping that, talking with Kevin, maybe there's some creative solutions, maybe there's an opportunity for us to go in on maybe a COPS grant or some other aspect. But I think that, having the sheriff recognize this just isn't sustainable for us. If we had the money, that'd be great. If we had the level of service, that would be great. But both of those aren't there. So, we could afford it right now, but we're not going to afford it next year. And I don't see those costs ever going down. Once you go down this rabbit hole, costs just continue to go up. So,
What is the bottom line impact on people who live in Blue Lake if we don't sign the contract?
so we have a contract. So our contract's in place till 2024. So what we have in our current contract is the sheriff can propose an increase. But usually that increase is like an inflationary increase or some tied to something. This year we got an increase that was, in my opinion, when I got the letter, it seemed a little bit arbitrary. There was no methodology behind it. I mean, I saw one breakdown for Trinidad that was completely different in cost structure compared to what was sent over to us. And then there was a thought that it was going to be based on population. So it was like, they took the full cost of operating the sheriff's department and then divided that by the number of people that they're serving, came up with a cost equivalent per person and said, okay, Blue Lake, you've got 1,200 people. So times that by, $270, that's your contract. Trinidad, you times it by 500 because that's, how many people you have. I mean, it was, it wasn't really articulated through the letter that we had received. It was more of, and I have the letter, it was, your new contract amount is $315,000. So,
Yeah.
It's hard to, kind of figure that out. And through a process of, calls and trying to extrapolate from, who came up with the numbers, how does this equate? I was first told it was, fuel and insurance went up. And then it was, like we took the full cost of this, but we pulled out this and that got to a different number. And then it was like, no, we're going to take the full cost of everything and do it per person. And so it's kind of gone around the map a little bit on how those costs. But bottom line is we have a letter from the sheriff saying our contract is at 315. If we don't accept it, we can begin the process. It's a 60-day process of notification of to basically break the contract. I don't anticipate doing that. The conversations are still fluid, and like I said, I wholeheartedly do not support this increase. I think we have got to find a better solution.
And if for some reason we could not do that, what would be the bottom line impact to people if we did not have a contract?
I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, I don't want to speak for the sheriff by any means. Obviously the sheriff has an obligation to provide services to the county where, we are within the county, we're our own city. We need to pay for services that are provided because we are a city. So it's, I don't know I wouldn't say that if, you know, the city didn't pay this and you called 911, that they'd be like, oh, wait, you're in Blue Lake? Yeah, sorry, we're not coming. You know, but it's, you know, we also have to pay our fair share
Mhm.
to have those services. So, like I said, right now is trying to find that equivalency and sustainability. Honestly, it's just not sustainable.
Are they open to a per call fee?
I did talk to them about not per call, but more of like a like we have animal control. So, you know, if we pay for animal control, we pay a flat rate. Um, but then if animal control comes out to say take away a dog, we have to pay on top of that. So if we were to pay a flat rate for just a basic response rate, is there a process for, like, you know, say there was an arson or something? Is there like a level of service for things outside of a basic, you know, a basic service level? And they weren't able to provide that. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we've been kind of talking about everything, like what's a basic,
Yeah.
You-
Yeah.
like what's like the limited, you know, package that we could get, and then we could supplement,
Mhm.
which would be the ultimate, I think, if we could have a basic level of service for an amount, and then we could supplement our needs by one, looking at private patrol, or two, possibly partnering with the Rancheria if there's some opportunities, working with Chief Miller. You know, it's always been kind of weird to have, you know, two separate law enforcement entities, you know, in a very small town. And so
Mhm.
there's always been conversation about, you know, how we could work together, collaborate. Maybe now's a great time. Um, so but like I said, I just, you know, looking at the stats, I think the statistics are very telling that we have a very, very low call volume for the city of Blue Lake, very low. And probably the majority of the calls that are attributed to us are just patrol checks. And that's really just, you know, a deputy going through and saying, hey, I checked Taylor Way. Hey, I drove by the park. I mean, there's very, very few calls that come into the city.
Mhm.
So I think that has to be a consideration. Okay. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys wanted to look at that, but
We get their call logs.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I
we
just
got
kind of
that.
broke it
Yeah.
down. I went through and highlighted every call that's outside of our jurisdiction, every call that is to the Rancheria, and then just came up with the percentages for all those. So those will be available if you want to look at those.
Right. Well, I'll open up the public comment at this time. Kent?
Well, I got busy, so I didn't have a chance to reach out to Sheriff Billy today. He usually takes my calls and discuss such things. Um, as far as I can tell, we get a certain amount of money for law enforcement, and I'm sure Mandy can correct me if wrong. It's something like 157,000, and this budget comes in, and that used to cover it totally. So we at that time we're not pulling anything out of our general fund. Um, the realistic thing is, and I speak frequently with Eli over there at City of Trinidad. I consider him a friend and worked with him before. And I think what they're doing is, if I remember their trial thing is, and I could be corrected if I'm wrong, is I think they're attempting to get 20 hours from these people. I think it's around $45 an hour, 20 hours a week is what they're trying to do. Problem is that they were asking for possibly 30 hours from them, and this guy is just firing this thing up. So, in other words, if we went into him now and said, "Could we have 20 hours to go with him?" It's going to take him a while to put staff on. You know, it's nothing. You just go ahead and boom, you double your size of staff. So this is an option, but it's an option of an assistant to what is the bare minimum, which is a sheriff. That's what he's getting. That's the bare minimum. That's it. There's nothing less than that. It's based upon, and no matter how much we don't like what the cost is, my understanding is it's based upon population. That's their cost, and they figured out what population is, not based upon calls. Yet I don't think they have any contract with anybody around that's based upon calls. We're very limited. We are one of the few cities that doesn't have our own police department, and so we're pretty well at the will of what the sheriff's willing to do. And anything he's willing to do is a service. He's not required to provide any law enforcement to us other than we have a contract, which either he or they he can wind it down to 60 days, or we can wind it down to 60 days. The main thing is that we also have to look. 2024 is not that far off, and especially if something's major to be changed. I always got along really well with Floyd Stokes, and he was just resigning when I was out there at the Rancheria. Mr. Miller was not on board yet. I'm sure Billy will be introducing me to Mr. Miller because I do have, concerns regarding law enforcement, and I've always had that with the sheriff there in a working relationship. But I can't see how even being cross-deputized out there, how they can provide, in other words, they don't have a coroner. They don't have the investigative squad that we're going to need for Blue Lake to have full service, full minimum service. Let's put it that way. And it's quite extensive what the sheriff does. It's not just driving around, but all the other services they provide out in the county. And we would be treated exactly for this amount of money, 315, exactly what it is. I don't think there are other options, but I'd be happy to see them. And I'll check with Billy to see what form of communication. My curiosity thing, I doubt whether you've had time to get that to the sheriff with your reasoning. I wouldn't be overly optimistic that based upon calls is anything he would be interested in doing. He has not expressed that opinion to me, nor has any of his staff members. They have an opportunity to speak. Oh, I did want to mention on the animal thing. I think we have a basic 8,000. I think we pay for just the right to use the shelter, and then as Mandy said, we have additional costs. And I don't know how much that's added up to, but I think we get full coverage from them. And driving by, picking up dogs, helping us out here for something like $27,000. And we may have spent this year, I don't know how long it's been costing to board those dogs that were involved in the attack we had here. But we could be well on our way along here. Anytime you can transfer liability for anything to an organization like the county, that's their liability policy. Then you've done your due diligence by having them do this particular service. And I think it's a heck of a good buy, for that amount of money to have that taken care of professionally. It doesn't pay out to train your people. You do it like I said before when I was speaking before, and then they have to have the shots and everything like that. It's beyond. It didn't used to be that way. It is now, though. So I strongly support you checking further into the contract with the animal control out there, and find some way to budget that into the budget and get that done before we end up with in litigation. It's just the last thing we want to see is somebody saying, "Hey, I just went through $20,000 worth of shots because the dog wasn't licensed. It was a city dog. You guys should have had it licensed, been running around without a license and without the shot." So that's something we want to avoid. Just one time like that, you can be paying a couple $100,000 out of pocket.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dennis.
Okay. Yeah, when I read that response that you got from the sheriff in the last council meeting, my understanding, well, just my belief is he really wants to pull those guys back. He is short-staffed. So ultimately, I agree with Kate too. You got to look at the out years. You're probably not going to have that available in the out years, or the price is going to be very high. But I'm thinking I don't really know what the county services provide. I'm kind of assuming that they provide a basic coverage for the whole county, and that if cities need some additional services like Ferndale, and they want to establish their own uh, police department, well, they pay for that. I can understand that concept, but all the administration and the police work, the investigations, uh, all that kind of stuff should be handled by the county and not the cities, not the towns. Isn't that right? I'm not sure about that, but there should be this floor, and on top of that floor, if you can identify additional services you need that does not provide, I think that's where we should start this. And I was going to ask, is the council going to task the safety commission for looking into this?
So they haven't at this point. It's in my purview right now but working with the commissions to get some feedback in the community. That's why it's at this point. Yeah.
Well, if they do, I would like to volunteer as a civilian, member of your committee you assign.
Do you want to join the committee? We have openings.
What?
We have openings. You want to join the committee?
I've already
No, not the commission. I mean the committee.
since you've been on the commission.
He's the one I replaced.
We've been down this road before.
Yeah.
This isn't our first time.
That's
doing
why
this
I was
process.
interested in it. Yeah. And maybe now we need to look at it. The other thing I wanted to bring up is, what did you mean by private patrols? Were you talking about citizens in Blue Lake? Oh, you were talking about hiring somebody.
Yeah, there was actually, we had a presentation with Pacific Coast Security is starting to do some more patrols, and they've reached out to the cities
Right.
about having some additional capacity.
It might be interesting to get a statement of work that what we need above what the county provides to us, and see what the cost would be for something like that.
And that's what we were working on, and then we got the sheriff increase, so that kind of blew. At that point, we were like, the 315 would, take everything and more than what the city would have. The idea had been to do a baseline contract with the sheriff, kind of like what we have right now, and then augment it with the private security patrol, so that we would have something that was more reflective of Blue Lake's needs. And that was the direction we were going until we got the letter in June saying, "Oh, your increase, by the way, is $160 some thousand more than what you're paying now." So that kind of flipped us on our heads a little bit. I'm trying to kind of think now, what are our options?
Have you heard about the Arcata? So what do they call it? Civilian patrol, I think they call it. You've heard about it.
Yeah.
Is that that's non-paying, isn't it? That's just volunteer.
I believe it's a volunteer program. I think Stacy Atkins, who is a Blue Laker, got that going through, or they might be using some of their COVID dollars to do that, because it's kind of an ambassador program.
I wonder if they're actually doing patrols through neighborhoods. Are they doing that?
Not that I know of. I think it's more like around the plaza and trying to just increase safety and communication with people in the community.
Okay. I thought that might have been something that we could look into, maybe emulate. So, anyways, I had this little meeting last Thursday, and every idea they came up with, it turned out that this is something that the PSC had already established in one form or another, like the neighborhood watch and the pods, and these other programs that there was no new ideas. Even the getting more community engagement was something that the PSC had done in the past. So I think if we focused on that part of it, I think we could do on the interim a lot of this stuff ourselves, especially if we can get through to the citizens of Blue Lake that there is a need to do this and they can benefit from volunteering. But it would require someone to manage. That'd probably be the only monetary issue. Well, I guess that's all I've got. Who is?
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Julie.
So weird not zooming in here. I at the last council, I was on Zoom, and I do believe I heard there was a recommendation of some sorts to have some continual reports, maybe, and I would just like to support that. I think that's great, just so that nobody's misinterpreting something, or it's just clarification's awesome. Mandy, I don't know, you can rebuttal back to this if you choose, but in your report, I was just curious, within that sphere of influence out of Blue Lake, like, northeast, southwest, like how far is that going? Are we like hitting Fieldbrook? Are we hitting Maple Creek? Are we going beyond those?
It's pretty far when I look at the call volume. It's even Titlow Hill, Chesum Road,
Okay,
Fieldbrook.
really big
Yeah.
sphere.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Is there any, well, we won't debate this, but perhaps I wonder if we can negotiate a smaller sphere of influence somehow. I mean, that's just insanely unrealistic. I wonder if Trinidad also is dealing with work, at that point. It's the same distance. So there was that. I had one more thing. I'm like, usually write this stuff down. Oh, this is the big thing. I mean, we are in need of preparation. No offense. I mean, you go to Valley West. I mean, it's getting kind of creepy, weird, bad. And you look at Portland, San Francisco. I mean, no offense. There's a lot of people who's got to go somewhere. At the ranch there, I always get a good view of who's transiting through 299 in Glendale a lot. And no offense, it's not really our community members. And so just being, any kind of eyes in the sky and kind of any kind of soliciting we can do for private patrols. I got to meet the guys you guys interviewed at the fair. They were there to help find my kid's knife and the shavings pile of the metal detector. Really nice guys, but their resources and abilities are going to be limited. I had mentioned at City Council too, like if there's any way we could just do a massive fundraiser, like brews and music or something. I think people would support having law enforcement in our town and support some kind of thing like that. If we have to go grassroots to get the money, I think we can. So thank you.
Julie, just a quick
Yeah.
clarification there. When you mentioned initially about reports, are you talking about reports from this committee to the city council?
I just support that we have on continued sheriff's reports
Oh,
within
sheriff's
our commissions or our council.
Understood.
Either or, just
Okay.
to have them continued, please.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Question, Mandy, about what you say.
Can you
The-
state your name just so
Oh, sorry.
for recording?
Elise Scafani. Um, the calls that are attributed to Blue Lake that are outside the city limits. So that report, I've never seen that report before. That looks like a pretty fat report. Does that cover like 30 days or?
We get this every couple of weeks.
Okay. And so is the sheriff saying that everything on there is attributable to Blue Lake, or he's just giving a report that encompasses a certain region and we're in that region?
This is the report that they attribute to Blue Lake that they send to us. That's supposed to reflect our area. So
Okay. So I've done a fair bit of research into budget and I've had quite a few conversations with the sheriff's department. So I really wanted to understand what our options were. I watched your April meeting where Pacific Coast Securities was here and talked about providing service and the preventative piece and targeted problem areas and whatnot. And so as a council person, I really wanted to understand what our options might be. I like to slice and dice and solve problems and figure out what we can do. So I did a little bit of homework. I did learn that we do get grant funding every year. That is the Supplemental Law Enforcement Services Grant, and that's coming from the state. And for the last 2 years, with this reduced level of service, since we no longer had the dedicated deputies, that grant was paying the full cost of law enforcement for us. So for the last 2 years, we've not had to dip into our regular general fund revenues. So that's something to be aware of. There are other federal grants. There's a federal COPS grant that possibly we could look into that for the future to supplement the state grant funding that we're getting currently. So maybe this 315 is not, the result, the remaining 170 or so thousand maybe doesn't have to come out of our operating budget if we in the future can get these federal dollars. I don't know the requirements of that. I did look into that briefly and found that that all of those grants for this year were closed. So maybe a little, planning now that we know what we're looking at, a little, planning a little further out, we might have some options. And then, so as far as sustainability, I was told by the sheriff's department that a lot of this increase is it's not about service level. It's not about, um, you know, um, it's not about anything other than cost and tax revenues. The county, as we all know, has really taken a hard hit this year in tax revenues. And so essentially in the past with the lower level, with the lower price rather, the county was supplementing law enforcement in Blue Lake with tax dollars that weren't necessarily being attributed. We're not coming from the Blue Lake pool of monies. Um, And so I want to try to give you some information that's helpful. One of the things that I really was concerned about is the 911 response and what happens um, when 911 is called. And so the Captain Quinnell did clarify that sheriff's department has a duty to respond to a 911 call. But if we don't contract with them, they don't have a duty to do anything beyond securing a crime scene. So if they arrive to a call and there's a crime in progress, they can stop that crime, but then they will hand off to whoever we are contracting with. And so I think part of the confusion is people go, well, we're in the county and we are entitled to law enforcement services that the sheriff provides to all county areas, but we are an incorporated city. And so the dollars that that the sheriff gets from unincorporated parts of the county are not coming to the sheriff's department from Blue Lake. So that's partly why we have to foot the bill for that. And so I feel like there's been some confusion about the price doesn't the price is not reflective of the service level and this sort of thing. I think what the sheriff's trying to tell us is that it costs them this many dollars to provide service, and this is basically our share of cost. And yes, based on the population, they did a calculation and figured out how many people outside of incorporated cities that they are serving, and they came up with a dollar figure per person, and so that's how they figured our cost. And I'm hoping that that we can figure out a way to fund them, be through grants or or general funds. I mean, fortunately, our general fund is projected to have an excess this coming year of $96,000. So so that could certainly help to pay that. As we all, I mean, nobody wants to have to go into their savings to pay for ongoing services. So hopefully we won't have to do that too deeply or for too long. But we do have some some options. And the other thing is that in terms of handing off at a crime scene, Blue Lake would have to contract with somebody who is a sworn California peace officer in order to be able to hand off, and the private security companies are not. So where private security can be really helpful in prevention, they're not able to take over at a crime scene to do the investigation or the arrests and that type of work.
The sheriff's obligation only is to secure the crime scene, and if there's someone that they arrested, they don't actually arrest them. They simply hold them.
They don't.
And
They
so
don't. Yeah.
We have to keep this from going back and forth. So if you want to speak, we have to do it individually. Sorry.
They will not arrest. They will not take reports. They will not investigate unless they're contracted to do those things. And I think there was a little bit of confusion because the sheriff used Ferndale as an example. Ferndale's population is about 200 more than ours, and they do have their own police department, and they budget $650,000 a year for their police. So obviously they have a higher level of service than what the sheriff provides to us, but again, that cost to them is more than double. And I think it's great if we might be able to work something out with the Rancheria, but
Well,
that's gonna.
maybe we could get the sheriff to come and do an item, because I think some of the things you're saying are inaccurate, but I'd like to hear it from the sheriff and
Well, I got it
some
directly
data
from the sheriff's department,
to
so
back it up. So
yeah, I'm sure they would be happy to
Let's-
do that. And that's part of their contract. They're happy to come. Their contract actually states that they will come at the request. They'll come. I guess they would probably come to a public safety commission meeting, but the contract actually states that they'll come to a council meeting once a quarter at the request of the city.
we do have a liaison.
We have a liaison
Yeah.
with the sheriff's department.
Yep, and they don't show up as it is, but we can reach out.
Well, I did ask one time that they would come to a council meeting, and 3 of them showed up. So, I think they're really happy, and they've told me repeatedly that they're happy to come and answer questions and be present. So,
Thank you. Is there any more public comment on this item? Okay, then we're gonna move on to agency check-in. We don't have a representative from the sheriff's department tonight. They're always invited, but so we don't. Well, all we have is the patrol staff that they send us. As far as Blue Lake Fire, there's nothing really to report besides we're recruiting right now. We could use some bodies. So if you know anybody interested, so that's all we have for agency check-in. Is there anybody that would like to speak on that? Go ahead.
So you say they're always invited. Does that mean that somebody contacted them and said there would be questions at this meeting and they should send somebody out? Or is that just they just know they're welcome here probably?
Well, they know it's part of the contract, but they also are sent an agenda and a time that, as far as we send the agenda out.
But not a specific request to answer questions or something.
No.
Okay, so I think maybe that's what should happen. The other thing highly recommend is unlike the city council meeting where they sat there for probably an hour or more during the budget thing, had 3 county officials sitting there waiting to speak, and the council was unwilling to redo their agenda. Highly recommend that you give them a time specific. In other words, so you don't have people, taking a lot of time while other business is done. Because I felt very disheartened when they weren't accommodated, knowing 3 top county officials were sitting on hold when they could have easily had the schedule changed. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on to reports from liaison and staff. Have anything to report? Mike?
Let's see. I think you guys are pretty up to date. We talked about the safety walk, the preparedness stuff. Um, yeah, I don't think I have too much more to provide. I don't know if you guys have any questions on anything.
I'd like to put a bug in somebody's ear about having our liaisons show up to meetings.
Yeah.
And if it's not possible to find somebody who can,
Yeah,
because
we
I'd
can
like
do that.
I'd like to have a direct route to the council.
Sure. I think that's legitimate.
And our liaison is still Chris Edward.
Yeah, Chris and then Angela Scholl is the alternate.
Is there any update on the skate park?
Yeah, so we are actually meeting, I think on Thursday. To meet with the engineers to break ground, to kind of come up with a plan to break ground. So our goal is to break ground the end of August. We'll be working on the dirt track portion of the project. We did write a Clean California grant for about $850,000 to do a full-blown bike park and skate park. We won't know if we're going to receive any funding probably till September. But we are looking at additional grants and opportunities to make it more of a kind of a whole project versus just kind of like we'll do the dirt track now, and then as we get funding we'll do the pump track and things. So we're working a lot of different angles, but I think we have some really great community support and resources. We have a small grant through PG&E. We've done some fundraising. We have some dirt that's ready, and we have some commitments from local resource providers. And then working with Humboldt Skate Collective and RCMBA and Humboldt Mountain Biking Club and all the different groups that are committed to helping with that. I think it should be a manageable project. I think we can build a dirt track for sure. So, yeah.
And then I think I know the answer to this already, but I had a question from a community member who asked if there was ever any additional information about the 2 homicides that occurred.
I have not received any updates from the sheriff. I think that they are just, yeah. I don't have any update on that.
Can we request an update? I
I
know the
don't think
last
so.
we
Never
heard they were waiting for lab work to come.
Yeah.
That's last I heard.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
I think on a situation like that, information is always going to be very limited.
Okay.
I think what they're going to tell you is that it's an ongoing investigation. There's no threat to the public, and that's probably as much as is going to be provided.
Mhm.
Okay. Does any public want to respond to item 12? All right. So future agenda items, item number 13. I have Red Cross update. And then
Tabletop.
the tabletop. And then our normal line items we usually do. So uh, public safety preparedness discussion, I guess.
Mhm.
And then I think that's about it. Is there anybody from the public that would like a future agenda item? Okay. Well, if there's no objections, then I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank